Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome to what is going to be the first video of the Hector Mode playthrough for the Fire Emblem 7 Let's Play. As I've discussed previously in the Future of Fire Emblem video I posted a few weeks ago, I'm going to be handling this playthrough a bit differently than I did with Eliwood Mode. Basically, because Hector Mode is essentially Eliwood Mode with a few extra chapters and also like some, slightly modified maps and modified enemy units and stuff of that nature. I don't really feel like it's necessary to go through the entire game again, especially considering it's, technically a longer playthrough. So because of that, I'm going to be handling Hector Mode in a very specific way. If there are any new maps or new chapters, I am going to be covering them in this playthrough, including any chapters I did not see in Eliwood Mode, which are really just the, the two chapters where you can get two specific maps based on certain conditions you fulfilled. So yeah, anything I didn't see in Eliwood Mode, plus any new chapters that are exclusively for Hector Mode, they will be shown in full. When we get to the old chapters that were in Eliwood Mode, I will be going over a brief synopsis of that battle, some of the changes that happened, some of the things that happened in my own personal playthrough of that level, and if there are any new dialogue, conversations, or new cutscenes or anything like that, I will also showcase those as well, but for the most part I will be skipping those. So that's essentially what I'm going to be doing here. Now this first video is just going to be the first battle of Hector Mode because it is actually a new chapter. Before I get started, there are a few things I should probably mention. I am continuing this file from a Lin Mode playthrough that of course I'll not be showing because once again nothing really changed. But as far as what I did in Lin's mode, I actually raised Lin, Sane, and Sarah in that mode, so those characters are going to come at a slightly higher level than what they probably would be. Although Sarah, I guess, since she's the only healer in Lin's level, that's not necessarily the case. But I do plan to use Sarah in this particular playthrough as well, so, I do intend to use her at some point. I also leveled up a few other characters too, not because I'm going to be using them, but mainly just to kind of get some other characters some experience, because there is a thing where if you kind of overuse the same characters over and over again, they'll still get experience, but they'll get experience very slowly, and then you'll also just start burning your weapons as well. So because of that, I also gave some experience to Matthew, Dorcas, Will, and I believe a little bit to Lucius as well. So those characters also have some experience too, but again, probably not going to be using them in this playthrough. And there's actually a specific reason why I decided to raise Dorcas particular, just because Dorcas is technically a requirement, I guess, or at least what level you get them to is a requirement for one of the chapters we could have gotten in Eliwood Mode, but didn't. I'll talk about that more when we get to that point, but that's not until almost late game Hector Mode, so it's not even going to be relevant yet until then. But yeah, I did that, and I also raised Nils up to level 7 because there is a special chapter in Hector Mode only where the condition is you have to get Nils up to level 7 in Lin's mode, along with another requirement that, again, I will be covering when we get to that point. So yeah, I did that as well. I also nicknamed the strategist, or the tactician, for this playthrough. I gave him the name Ambrose. You're probably wondering, what exactly is Ambrose? Basically, just to give a brief synopsis, it's actually a nickname of a friend of mine who I'm been friends with for a very long time. We just used to always call him that in high school, and I thought it was a cool name for a strategist, so I decided to name my strategist that. So I wanted to give very quickly the origin of that name, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to myself, I guess, for the first chapter of Hector Mode. Again, it's brand new content, so this is a chapter we have not seen before. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Later, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're ready to raise your axes in the air like you just don't care. It is time to start the Hector Mode playthrough, so let's get this going. So before we start, there is some dialogue here. I think this dialogue just always appears whenever you complete lens mode. Because it still kind of treats Eliwood like the main character, even though we're going to be following Hector here. I don't exactly know why they didn't fix that or alter that, but the damage is done pretty much, so yeah, pretty much the same for both Eliwood and Hector mode here. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump 1 year later into the story. This is when Hector mode begins, around the same exact time that Eliwood mode begins. And if you couldn't tell by the fact that I'm not reading this dialogue, it is because this is post-commentary. I am going to go ahead and say that now. Basically, I tried to read the dialogue while I was going through this, but, you know, was actually pressing the A button way too fast than what I could actually read for, so I'm going to be not really reading these. Maybe I'll try to fix it for future videos when I am actually aware that I need a little more time to read everything, but as far as right here is concerned, I'm just going to talk over this and just kind of give a brief synopsis of what's going on. So yeah, we all know the story from Eliwood mode. Marcus Foray has gone missing. They're not exactly sure why he's gone missing or where he's gone to. Hector is naturally very worried about this because his good friend Eliwood is at the core of this, and he wants to help his friend find his father. But Hector's brother, Lord Uther, is not about that. He wants to kind of stick to his own affairs. Not because he's heartless and because he doesn't want to help. There's just a lot of things that we learn later that Lord Uther is focusing on, namely the country of Bern, which is north of Ostia and the Lycian League in general. And, you know, trying to obviously keep things in control there. And obviously being just the head of an entire nation as it is, there's probably other nations or Uther is trying to, you know, work with and figure out, you know, different things. Heck, he could actually be trying to figure out what is going on with Marcus Foray, and Hector is just not really realizing that. So he wants to go help. Uther says he doesn't want to help. So Hector is going to take, you know, matters into his own hands, and he's going to try to do things in his own way. He's actually going to hire Uther's spy Matthew to help him get supplies so he can leave the palace and join Eliwood on his own. And that's pretty much what's going on right here. Pretty much just trying to aid Hector in his escape. Although I think the funny thing is, I think Uther knew from the beginning that Hector was going to go off and help Eliwood. I mean, he knows that Hector and Eliwood are friends. They're bros, pretty much. Bros from different moms, but still bros nonetheless. And, you know, that's just a friendship, a bond you can't destroy. So, you know, I think Uther knew that this was going to happen, and I think in some way he actually made his peace with it, and, you know, even told probably the soldiers himself that he didn't want Hector being stopped. Could also be just part of his plan. Like maybe he wanted to use Hector as a way to kind of keep tabs on this whole situation. But yeah, there seems to be some trouble going on. There are some enemy units in the castle. They seem to be very mysterious. So gonna have to deal with them as we're leaving. They may even be part of the Black Fang. We'll have to see about that. But yeah, for this first chapter, we actually control both Hector and Matthew, and this is where I think playing through lens mode could actually be very beneficial, because if you play through lens mode, all of the lens units actually retain the experience they had, you know, from lens story. So because of that, you could actually beef up Matthew quite a bit. And even though I wouldn't recommend really using Matthew much in this chapter, you can also just, you know, use the fact that Matthew has a lot of experience already, and then just kind of focus on Hector for a while, because, you know, Hector is essentially starting from scratch here. He's only level 1, and you can get a lot of experience here, especially because all the units, they're pretty much made for Hector to get a lot of experience off of. I'm going to go ahead and leave animations on too, just for a while. And also, I'm not going to be showing much anyway, so it's like, may as well have them on, so whenever we get to them, you guys have something you can watch and something you can admire, because We all know how the animations are and how cool they are, so we'll obviously keep them. But yeah, mostly just have a lot of lance users and archers. That's really about it. Hector has the easy advantage against the lance users, and he also has enough defense to not take very much damage from the lance users and the archers as well, so Hector is pretty safe in this chapter, although I did get pretty low with him at one point, despite that, because he does only have 19 HP, so he's not, he's not invincible, but, there are vulneraries you can get, so it shouldn't really be that much of an issue. I am going to go ahead and use Matthew here just to weaken this guy. That's kind of the thing, yeah, even though you do have Matthew at a pretty high level, or you might have him at a high level, you can at least use him to kind of weaken some units to get the kill with Hector a lot easier. Just wouldn't recommend getting any kills with Matthew, just because, and again, only if you've used him in lens mode. If he's starting from scratch, yeah, you probably want to give him some experience here, because you want to have thieves that have very high speed so they could steal stuff. That kind of goes without saying, but you never know. But yeah, this is pretty much the map. It's a very small map. As you can see, there is a treasure chest in the middle there. I want to say that treasure chest has a gem. And at this point, we have 0 money, so we're going to need that gem if we want to buy some stuff in the next chapter. So I am going to be swinging over there to get that in a little bit. But for the most part, my strategy for this map is just to get as many kills as possible with Hector. Get him up a couple of levels. That way, in the next chapter and the following chapters, I can focus a little more on Eliwood and his group, and we kind of meet up with them. So you guys are probably wondering, who exactly do I plan to use in this particular playthrough? And I guess this would be a good time to kind of talk about that. First off, I'm going to try to be using a lot less magic users this time around. Mainly due to the fact that I want to get the second version of Pale Flower of Darkness, which basically requires all your hero crest units to be higher than your guiding ring units. And I believe there's only 4 units that count for that, for each tier. I believe for guiding ring it's Priscilla, Sarah, Lucius, and Urk, and for the hero crest it's Dorcas, Barter, Raven, and Guy. So because of that, I'm going to be not really using a lot of magic units. I'm not going to be using Priscilla this time. I'll be using Sarah instead. I'm not going to use Urk, and I'm not going to use Lucius as well, so I'll just really have experience for Sarah moving forward. So my goal for the other units, I don't plan to use Raven this time, and I don't plan to use Dorcas either, but with the way I have it set up, they should have more experience than some of those other units I mentioned. Like, I think Raven will be at a higher level than Priscilla, Dorcas will be at a higher level than Lucius, and I do plan to use Guy, and I do plan to use Barter, because they are 2 units, and that way I can also show off 2 advanced classes, which I didn't really use in the prior playthrough, so I can show off the Swordmaster, and I can show off the Warrior as well. So I feel like that was the best thing I could do to assure that I'd get that second version of Pale Flower of Darkness. As I mentioned earlier, I will be using Sane instead of Kent this time around. I like both of them, and I feel like, it'd be a good chance to use both units in this, full-length playthrough. I use Kent in Eliwood's and use Sane in Hector's, so that's who I'm pretty much planning to use as my my Paladin unit for this playthrough. Returning from the last playthrough, I will be using Canas and Oswin again. As I mentioned before, it's good to use both of those units. They're both really, really good, and they're definitely a cornerstone for any playthrough. Oswin because he can tank a lot of damage, especially some of those early game bosses that can do a lot of damage to you, and Canas, he has Luna, and he also doesn't count for the magic unit Pale Flower of Darkness chapter either, so I can get away with using him to not much penalty. So yeah, that's pretty much how I plan to use in this playthrough. I'll probably add some flying units as well. Obviously there's a Pegasus Knight I could use, and there's also the Wyvern Knight as well. Didn't really get to show off the Wyvern Knight or Wyvern Lord, so even though I don't really like using them that much, I might use Heath in this playthrough. We'll just have to wait and see. And of course, there's also one other unit I've kind of been debating against, just because, it's a unit that is pretty damn powerful, but she's also very, very late in the game. I could also use Nino in this playthrough as well, just to kind of show off how badass she is. Literally, probably one of the best units in the game, but has, you know, really, really awkward availability. Comes at a very low level at a very late point in the game. So it is kind of risky using her, but when you do level her up, she's really, really good. So, you know, that could happen as well. But we'll see. Obviously, I need to get to that part of the playthrough before I make that decision, and I have a pretty decent group of units as well. And as far as utility is concerned, obviously for my thief, this is Hector Mode playthrough. I'm not really much on raising thieves as combat units because they should only be used for pilfering chests and stealing stuff. You know, I do try to keep one around for at least a good part of the game, and I'm thinking Matthew because it's Hector Mode, because, you know, Legault, you know, doesn't really have any ties to the main lord. Matthew has a tie to Hector, so it made sense to use Matthew for the Hector Mode playthrough. And this way we can actually use, like, all 4 Ostia units. We can use Hector, Sarah, Oswin, and Matthew, so that would be pretty cool. But yeah, we're getting ready to come to the end of here. This chapter, really not that hard when you break it down. Hector is just really, really good. I mean, he got pretty low on HP a few times. But, you know, you have vulneraries. Usually once you use one, you should be able to take out the rest of them just fine. And you have the Wolf Bale, too. And that's pretty much going to speak game over for the boss over there. Who, by the way, the boss is a recolor. He is actually a recolor of, I believe, Damien from the Port of Badon level. So it'll be kind of funny to see that. It's a character that'll look familiar, but it's not the same character. Yep, it's Damien. He ditched his hair, his purple hair, for kind of more orange, brownish hair. Kind of a weird decision, but what can you do? But yeah, there's not really much to say about this chapter. I know I didn't really talk too much about it, but again, just minimize the amount of lockpicks you use. Focus on giving Hector some experience, because he is your new lord. And that's really about it. I think you can get away with only using 2 lockpicks here, because you need one to open that door. And then you need one to actually open the chest, so pretty easy to do that. And here, Wolf Bale destroys him. So yeah, based on what we know from the Eliwood Mode playthrough, Wire is part of the Black Fang. So the Black Fang actually... Yeah, I'd say the Black Fang actually is first to attack Hector here over Eliwood, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, both Hector and Matthew going to do some post-battle discussion here. I believe we'll also meet up with our good friend Oswin, and our not really friend, but she's a healer, so we'll take her, Sarah, as well. And then they'll join us for the future of this mode. Or actually, I don't think they'll meet here. I think they'll meet at the beginning of the next chapter, but Uther will be sending them off now, I believe. Also, apparently Lord Uther is a bit sick right now. I think we kind of briefly saw this, like, in Eliwood Mode, but not really too much of it. But yeah, here he is. These are his orders. He's going to order both Oswin and Sarah to continue alongside us. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for the first chapter of Hector Mode. So again, just to kind of briefly, just kind of remind you guys, next video, it's going to be pretty much the abridgment of the next few chapters. In fact, I might actually try to see if I can get all the abridgments done for chapters 12 through 14. Because the next Hector exclusive chapter is chapter 15. So we'll try to go through the next 3 chapters, plus the Merlinus chapter as well, which is also in that mix as well. So we'll try to do that in the next video. Again, they're going to be abridgments, so they're not going to be the whole entire chapter, but I'll definitely show off the differences, kind of talk about all the differences in those chapters and those battle maps, and also show you any exclusive dialogue that might be in here, but also not in Eliwood's mode, and just anything else I find interesting. Might also show like the level ups of all my characters, so we can kind of follow them as they go through the game. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you guys enjoy this playthrough for what it is. I know it's not exactly the same as the first part of the playthrough, but this is my compromise, because I really don't want to do an entire another playthrough that'll take another like 3 or 4 months or so. So I think this is going to be a good alternative. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later, folks.